it's time to get started. We've got a few people who have joined us through the Zoom link. I see some people who are dialed in to the number, and we are also streaming this live on YouTube. So attendees, please feel free to ask questions during the session using the Q&A box that you've got in front of you. You can also use the chat option. And over to the presenters of the webinar, Tina and Muzzammil.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. All right, let's get started. We are going to be talking about the new Azure certifications that are coming out to market. We want to make sure you have some good information and that you're well prepared. Do I have the ability to move the screens, or would you be doing that for me?
Yeah, we can take care of that. Just say next slide whenever.
Okay, very good. Awesome. So that's my smiling mug. I've had 19 years in the training industry, and I am currently a Microsoft dedicated channel manager. I work with a lot of Microsoft teams. We support their initiative around the Azure certifications as well. Next slide, please. Muzzammil, Hanif is going to be presenting today. He has a lot of history in the training industry as well. Primary focus, he's working with these particular vendors, Microsoft, CompTIA, around information security, Agile Scrum. And he's currently developing a cloud computing, web development, and data systems learning path. Thank you, Muzzammil, for doing this presentation. Anybody has any questions, please put those in the chat box. And if we could begin, that would be wonderful.
All right, thanks, Tina. Hi, everyone. So this is Muzzammil. Thanks for the introduction, Tina, and thanks for having me. So like Tina said, our objective today is to make sure that we are communicating all the right things pertaining to the new Microsoft Azure certifications that are already rolled out. As a Microsoft Gold Learning Partner, we want to make sure that people are informed at the right time, our students are aware, and people who want to get certified or renew their existing certifications or transition their existing Azure certifications know what to do and how to go about doing that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of the big picture scenario, what we will try to cover today, I want to share with you guys in terms of the cloud solutions industry, Microsoft's Azure product, how does that stack up against the other public cloud solutions provider? I'm sure that if you've already taken Azure certifications or Azure specific trainings in the past, you probably know of more than one option from a cloud services perspective. What are the options available to us, and how does that compare to Azure? I think it's going to be an interesting insight into what's changing, what has changed over the past 2 years, what it looks like in terms of the future direction of the Azure solutions providers. Then we will take a look at the actual Azure certifications, the new role-based certifications, and the required exams that meet those certification requirements. I will also point out and share some of the exams that were part of the older certifications from Microsoft. Those certifications, though, have not retired yet, but they're soon to be retired. So we will look at some of those exams when they retire. What are the exact exam numbers? What are the exact replacements for them? And what should be our next steps? So if you are someone who has a keen interest in Azure solutions or an interest in cloud solutions, or if you've already taken a Microsoft certification in the past, it will be very interesting to see where you want to go next, how you want to get certified or recertified for 2019 and onwards. And then towards the end, I would love to hear your feedback and questions. Like Tina said already, you can put that in the chat window, and we will answer them one by one. And if there is a question that we cannot answer right away, we'll definitely get back to you. Okay, so let's a quick. I want to obviously, I understand that our webinar, as Tina said, is primarily about the Azure certifications, but it would it would make a lot more sense if we understand why those certifications are important. And one of the leading indicators of that importance is where the Azure or the cloud industry is going as a whole. What are the implications from a competition standpoint? What are the implications from a future demand standpoint? So it's evident based on the statistics that are available to us, based on the conversations that we regularly have with our learning community, with our customer organizations who use Quick Start as a learning partner. Based on that research and based on the statistics that are available to us, that more and more organizations are moving their data centers, their applications to the cloud. It started off with large organizations initially when the cloud solutions, public cloud solutions came into existence. But as time has gone by and things have evolved, different implications have come into play in terms of security, in terms of cost, and the real estate that is required to run a data center on-premise. More and more organizations are moving towards the cloud. So overall, the industry is definitely growing. There's no question about that. I mean, if you look at infrastructure as a service, which is between the infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and platform as a service, IaaS has grown by 36%, or is growing by 36% by the end of 2018. It's a huge industry. Software as a service at the same time is growing at an even larger amount, because products like Office 365, for example, or products like Dynamics 365 from Microsoft, they're all cloud-based software as a service solutions. And as a result, there's a quick look at the graph. If you look at that that bar on your left, where I have the graph, which shows you data center. So data center implies solutions, enterprise solutions and data solutions implemented on-premise. So between 2017 and 2018, just within a 12-month period, the on-premise solution shrunk from 60% to 46%. So where is all that going? That's it's clear that that's going to public cloud primarily, and in some cases hybrid situations, hybrid solutions, or for some very, very security conscious or very, very compliance conscious organizations such as the federal government, they're probably doing private cloud. Next slide, please. Now, so that was the obviously overall synopsis of the cloud industry at a high level. From a comparison standpoint, the major cloud solutions provider, Microsoft being one, Amazon Web Services, and there's Google Cloud, and some other players on a private cloud platform, IBM, Salesforce. There's a lot of cloud service providers. AWS remains to be the leader at this point. It has dominated the public cloud solutions industry by a large margin historically. But having said that, the growth has tapered off for various reasons, of course. One of the biggest reasons is that Microsoft, over the past couple of years, has become heavily focused on their entire cloud solutions portfolio. In fact, one of the biggest 2018 strategies was the fact that they want to focus on all things cloud. They're moving everything from an infrastructure point of view, from a software as a service point of view. So they're growing at a very fast pace. There's a very, very active constant evolution happening within Microsoft on a regular basis, which is improving its services, its offering, its licensing model to organizations, its efficiency model. So, for example, within if you look at 2018 growth number, Microsoft has grown by 84%. On the other hand, Amazon Web Services isn't growing half as fast as that. So as a result, it is clearly a very competitive space. It's getting heavily invested in by Microsoft itself. And going forward, we expect, and again, based on a lot of statistics available to us and a lot of conversations that we have with the learning community, organizations are more open to adopting and accepting Azure as the preferred cloud vendor. One primary reason, based on some research is that it's easier because the enterprise community is already using a lot of Microsoft services as it is from a software perspective, from a server side perspective, the Windows Server, from a data perspective, they're already heavily invested in Microsoft technologies. So it makes a lot of sense to go with the same vendor for the sake of, scalability and integration. And there's a quick market share review on the right side where you can see that as far as infrastructure platform is concerned, it's a close fight between the two big players, and there are some of the smaller ones. Next slide, please. Okay, so with that background in mind, with that overview in terms of AWS versus Azure and Azure as a preferred vendor, obviously, in order to make sure that the IT community and the existing cloud professionals or soon to be cloud professionals, Microsoft and organizations themselves want to make sure that their professionals, their IT teams, their IT organizations are fully trained, fully certified, and they're very, very focused towards their specific projects or towards their specific objectives within the organization. I will also say that according to one research from Microsoft, based on some of the things that they talk about with their partners from a client partner perspective, certified professionals showed multiple times, and I think it's about 3 or 4, somewhere between 3 to 4 times of a success factor in terms of implementation of an IT project as compared to someone who was not certified, despite the fact that they were self-trained, despite the fact that they were part of the IT functions, despite the fact that they were part of the IT community. But certification prep and certification recognition or testing ensures that people are going on the right path. They're doing things in a very methodical way. They're implementing their projects in a very calculated and a very gradual way that ensures business continuity and improves the efficiency. What you see in front of on your screen, there's a whole certification roadmap for Microsoft Azure. You will see that it starts off with Microsoft Certified Azure Fundamentals certification, which is soon to be rolled out. But having said that, this fundamental certification in itself is not a prerequisite for any of the following associate level or expert level certifications. It's an optional certification, and in many cases, this certification can also be taken by non-IT professionals, people who sell IT services, people who sell technology-enabled services, people who, integrators who want to get proficiency in the Azure platform as a business solution. They want to talk through the solutions and services when they're selling as a technology. So this certification would best suited for those kind of people. So it is not only meant for an IT audience. At this point, what has been rolled out by Microsoft officially, as well as Quick Start, is that there's an administrator certification, Microsoft Certified Azure Administrator Associate level. Then there's an Azure Developer, again, an associate level certification, and Azure Solutions Architect, which is an expert level certification. These 3 certifications have already been rolled out. They're live. The exams have already started happening. We've already started preparing people for it, making sure that they succeed in it. Coming up, and it's expected sometime around 2019, in the beginning of 2019, probably Q1 or early Q2, of the next year, Microsoft is going to release the Azure DevOps Engineer Expert certification as well. These are all role-based certifications. They heavily focus on a single job role of a professional, and everything within each certification makes sure that they're fully prepared end-to-end and they're future-ready in terms of their specific job roles. Microsoft is also planning to announce some additional associate level roles as well. They're in the process of developing those, and I expect that they're probably going to come out obviously after the DevOps, because DevOps is already something that's in QA, and they're validating some of the expertise of the instructors and trainers who are developing that. So all in all, it's a pretty comprehensive roadmap. I think that this supports their 2018 and 2019 strategy to make sure that the IT community at a global level is well prepared to take care of the Azure services as a preferred solution. And so let's look at a little deeper into the Azure role-based certification paths. From an administrator point of view, obviously, people who have already taken the Azure administrator that falls within the administrator domain, and by that I mean people who have already taken the 70-533 exam, which is implementing the Azure infrastructure. So if you've already taken that exam, or if you were planning to take that exam, and that is something that's part of your job domain, this is the certification path or the learning path that you would be looking into. This certification path has 2 exams. One of them is AZ-100 and the other one is AZ-101. So 100 basically is the overall deployment. It covers the skills required to deploy Azure as an infrastructure for the organization as a whole. And the second one focuses on the security. So again, both of these aspects cover the immediate needs of an administrator within an organization. So if you're a system administrator and you want to learn more about cloud technologies, you want to make sure that you're ready, or your employees are ready for the administrator path, these 2 exams they should be taking, assuming that they have not taken 7533. However, if you have already taken 7533 exam in the past, you would be taking AZ-102, and we have, there in the next few slides, I'll lay them down again so you guys know exactly which one replaces what, assuming that you've taken previous exams. Obviously from an expertise perspective, what does the administrator learning path or the administrator certification path teaches you from a skills point of view? It's going to make sure that you know exactly the storage, security, and networking solutions available to you through the Azure platform. You're going to be the go-to person, or you should be thinking about becoming the go-to person after taking this certification exam in terms of deciding what scaling solutions you should use, how they would optimize your organizational performance, how they would improve services for the overall organization in terms of cost, in terms of overall performance, as well as efficiency. Like I said, the idea is anybody taking this certification exam should be the go-to person to make those recommendations and manage those recommendations. Next slide, please. Okay, developer learning path. So this is again, a unique role and a very, very important role in organizations that have a lot of applications or applications-driven services deployed internally for their internal users from an internal point of view, or for their customers. Again, there are 2 exams that are part of it. You take the AZ-200 exam, which is a core exam, which talks about the core developer solutions available via the Azure platform. And then 201, which talks about some of the advanced services available to you within the Azure platform. These services may or may not be always in use to you, but would apply in certain business needs, would apply in certain situations, depending on the kind of services you want to provide. While developer role is obviously heavily oriented towards development within the organization for services available internally or externally, but at the same time, it is expected that, in any organization, developers will regularly coordinate and partner with their database administrators or database developers, their customers, because a lot of times, a lot of organizations who have a large developer team, they're creating and developing and deploying application solutions for their client organizations, and their interaction, their coordination, understanding of technical needs are very client-driven, very customer-driven. So developers usually have to integrate with that, and they would be able to understand after taking the certification path how to offer those services to their customers and how to take care of them from an implementation point of view, from a development point of view. And then the expert level certification path. So the architect solutions, the solutions architect, excuse me, the solutions architect certification path is a very high level role, you know, from a solutions architect perspective. Any organization has to have someone who's thinking out big, who's thinking out loud, looking at the big picture in terms of the overall IT framework, overall IT infrastructure as a whole. And it is also most likely that this particular job role will not only be looking at only cloud solutions. They have a lot of on-prem solutions. They have a lot of client-driven solutions. They want to make sure that the data centers are operating properly. They're taking care of the security and compliance of their IT infrastructure, as well as facilitating the right working environment for their developers, for their solutions providers. So it's an expert level exam. But having said that, the system administrator certification path or the developer certification path at this point is not a prerequisite for this. They can take the fundamentals exam and they can go on, but again, that's optional. But having said that, an Azure solution certification path has a pretty elaborate learning model, has a pretty elaborate skill set that is required. There's an AZ300 exam, and then there's an AZ301 exam. So one focuses purely on the technologies available as Azure as a service, as a solution. And the other one is purely from a design perspective in terms of being able to overall think about the overall IT infrastructure from an enterprise architecture perspective. So technology implementation, it is clear that at this level, the professional would have had several years of experience in terms of IT services, in terms of system administration, or maybe they're a developer role and they grew into a solutions architect role. And they have definitely a high understanding of of DevOps practices to make sure that they're fully proficient at that. Next slide, please. Now, so we talked about, we looked at the overall roadmap of the specifically for Azure certifications. We looked into specific roles, and as you heard that I pointed out some exams that are retiring, and we'll look at that in the next slide. So that's why I didn't want to focus specifically on that, but so we looked at that. So those are the old exams, and now we have some new role-based certifications. But the bigger question is that, well, how did the role-based certifications, from a skill set point of view, from a skills learning point of view, what were the areas that were looked into before making that kind of decision? So what happened over the past year is that Microsoft did a pretty comprehensive job task analysis. They went into various organizations that they've worked with for several years. They brought in a lot of IT community stakeholders, people who have very, very high expertise in these areas. They wanted to make sure that they have a very thorough understanding of the needs of all three roles from a practical perspective. They wanted to be very clear in terms of what are the expectations on the organization's part for those specific job roles when it comes to Azure. What are the expectations of the individuals? What are the kind of skills that they need for themselves, even if the organizational expectations might be slightly different? So from the personal understanding and personal development point of view, or personal, in order to deploy a specific project, there are a lot of challenges. Obviously, when a technology is new, it's evolving. It is the community that gets back to the original vendor and that's how the services and solutions improve as a whole for everybody. So in consultation with a lot of field experts, Microsoft went in, did a job task analysis. They understood what was required. That understanding was then mapped and narrowed down to specific job roles. And as a result, the certification path was developed, which then rolled out for in terms of certification exams. At this point, like I said, there are 4 roles: the Azure administrator, the Azure developer, the solutions architect, and then soon to come out, the Azure DevOps engineer. At this point, that is the need of the industry. That is where the next 5 years or 3 years of the industry are going to be in terms of the demand for these specific roles, in terms of demand for these specific skills when it comes to implementation of cloud solutions. So that was the background in terms of when they came up with that.
So Muzzammil, I have a question. Is that the reason or the catalyst behind the why of the change of the certifications? They already had the certifications in play, but is that the catalyst?
Well, that's not the catalyst in itself. Okay, well, that's a good question. So yeah, so that's the approach that they took in order to meet those needs. But yeah, you're asking, so what was the trigger behind it in terms of what was the catalyst? So yeah, it's true. And initially you think of, okay, well, they already had these certifications and those were cloud exams. So what's different now? What was that? And what is this now? Well, at that point, when cloud exams were rolled out, the 532s, the 533, and 535, primarily when we talk about these 3 roles, when these were rolled out, at that point, the strategic goal for Microsoft and for organizations that were looking into Azure as a potential option was to make sure that they're adopting Azure as a new solution within their organization. The objectives at that point and the needs at that point was primarily about adoption, implementation. But as the case is with any new technology, things evolve very quickly within the organization. When organizations started adopting that, that's when the feedback started coming back in terms of, okay, how about if this was supposed to be done this way? How about if we can scale this application in through an API? Or so, things started changing shape. The needs started changing very quickly, and it became evident over the course of the past couple of years that this has to be updated and upgraded. So while Azure as a technology continues to be upgraded, the skills adequately have to be updated as well. So that was the main catalyst behind it. And I think that's always going to be the case with any new technology that comes out, even for mature technology solutions, like even Windows Server. There are a lot of improvements that take place. We see very often that even the, very legacy training curriculum gets updated pretty frequently. So this was part of the bigger update. This is part of the, renewing the drive towards Azure to make sure that it meets the organizational needs in a very, very new perspective. So yeah, that was a whole catalyst behind it. Okay, so Azure transition to new exams. So like I was talking about the exams that are retiring, the 3 core exams that are retiring, you can see the 7532, 533, and 535. They're retiring on the 31st of December 2018. What that really means is that after 31st December 2018, you will not be able to order this exam. This exam will cease to exist. These exams are being replaced, exactly if you look at the transition exams, the AZ202 on your right column, AZ102 and AZ302. These are the transition exams. Now, transition exams are primarily meant for professionals who have already passed the 3 retiring exams. If they've already passed this, they can go ahead and take these transition exams, and their certifications will be updated, and they will then be qualified, certified Azure administrator, developer, or solutions architect. These transition exams will be available after the 31st of December 2018, but they will retire June 30th, 2019. So after the retirement of the 3 legacy exams, there will be up to 6 months to take this transition exams. Now, I want to point out one more thing, that while these exams are retiring on 31st, 2018, the these let's say if you are already preparing to take this exam right now, you have already ordered, you have an exam voucher right now for the month of November or December, you can still go ahead and take it despite the fact the exam will retire. Your competency as a result of taking that exam will remain valid until 31st of December 2019. So if you've already prepared for 532, if you've already prepared for 533 or 535, you've attended those trainings, you've taken those classes, or you've attended on-demand, mock-on-demand training, you can go ahead and take those exams. Your competencies will remain valid until the 31st of December 2019. Or you can plan to take transition exams up to 6 months after 31st of December. So while the exams may retire, you still have up to 1 more year to keep your competencies valid. So previous slide showed the exact transition exams. So here's a quick roundup in terms of transition exams or exams that you want to take if you're coming in and trying to get certified Azure for the first time. So if you are someone who wants to become certified Azure Administrator Associate and you've never taken an Azure exam before, you're going to have to take AZ 100 and 101. And if you've already taken the 533 exam, you will just have to take the AZ102. Similarly for developer and solutions. So in terms of the right exam, you need to first know exactly what exam you've taken. If it's retiring, if you've prepared, like I said, go ahead and take it. It's not going to affect your competency up to the end of 2019. That's a significant amount of time to prepare for the new exams. If you don't, since you've already invested time, you cannot take some time out of work this month for the new exam, then you have up to 6 months to transition after the 31st of December. The core difference between the exams for the transition option and the net new option is that the transition exam, for example, AZ202, only tests and measures your skills that are net new of 7532 as an example. So all the skills and all the chapters and modules or topics or services from a developer perspective that you have been tested for in the 7532 exam, anything above and beyond that is part of the 2 new exams, AZ202 tests only the new skills. So AZ202 is net new if you've taken the previous exam and so on and so forth. So I think this is a pretty interesting way forward for Microsoft. We're looking that they're transitioning from the typical MCSAs and the MCSEs of the world to role-based, technology-specific certifications. And there's a lot of buzz around it already. We know that a lot of people have talked about this. A lot of people have reached out to us asking about this. There's a lot of interest happening within our learning community as it is. So it is the right time for you to start making those decisions. It's the right time for you to start planning out your career for the next several years, whether you want to focus on a new technology in a specific role, or you want to focus on Microsoft's other certifications that cover a lot of other things, such as Office 365 or Microsoft 365. We will plan to do a webinar similarly for some of the other role-based Microsoft 365 certifications as well in the coming weeks. But at this point, that is about it from us. If there are any questions, I would love to hear that. Etisham, do you know, if we have any questions?
No, we do not. So
Okay.
we'll give everyone a minute. Like we've got a few participants.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay, so guys, if you have any questions later, feel free to reach out to us at marketing@quickstart.com. Similarly, join us at expertconnect.quickstart.com. I put the URL in the comment section. Please take it from there. Expert Connect is a society for IT professionals where you can all connect and talk about all things IT related. Thank you for attending this webinar. Muzzammil, Tina, thank you very much for doing this. It
Thank
was
you
a
for
very
having me.
educational session, and we look forward to doing this again very soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Bye, everyone.
everyone. Good luck.